The alien scholar mocked human stories. Until he realized they were history lessons, Dr. Zefix adjusted his crystalline optical sensors as he reviewed the latest batch of human cultural artifacts. The Valerian scholar had spent 3 rotations studying what humans called literature, though he struggled to understand why such primitive fiction warranted academic attention. His colleagues at the Galactic Institute for Xenological Studies had assigned him this tedious task as punishment for his controversial paper questioning humanity's recent admission to the Galactic Consortium. Preposterous fabrications, he muttered, in his native harmonic frequencies, scanning through digital copies of human stories. Dragons that breathe fire, warriors wielding primitive metal weapons, beings with supernatural abilities. How can the Council expect us to take seriously a species that wastes mental capacity on such childish fantasies? Zefix-Ka's 4-chambered brain processed information at speeds that made human thought seem glacial. His species had evolved beyond physical conflict millennia ago, resolving disputes through mathematical equations and logical proofs. Violence was an abstract concept, existing only in theoretical models. Yet here were humans, apparently obsessed with tales of combat, struggle, and triumph against impossible odds. He selected a story titled Beowulf and began analyzing its contents. A human warrior fighting monsters with nothing but primitive weapons and physical strength? Laughable. His species could eliminate any threat with plasma weaponry or molecular disruptors. The very idea of hand-to-hand combat seemed absurdly inefficient. Next came tales of something called World War II. Zefix-Ka's optical sensors flickered with amusement. Humans fighting with chemical explosives and metal projectiles, creating flying machines from aluminum and steel, building enormous ships to transport soldiers across water. The technological limitations described seemed almost quaint compared to Valerian antimatter drives and dimensional fold technology. But as he delved deeper into the archives, peculiar patterns began emerging. The stories spoke of humans facing overwhelming odds with insufficient technology, yet somehow prevailing through determination, creativity, and what they termed spirit. One tale described a small group holding a mountain pass against thousands. Another chronicled humans crossing frozen wastelands to achieve victory. Most bizarre of all were accounts of humans intentionally crashing flying machines into enemy vessels, sacrificing themselves for strategic advantage. Clearly embellished. Propaganda, Zefix-Ka reasoned. No rational species would engage in such destructive behavior. Combat was about superior technology and logical tactics, not emotional gestures. His research was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Consortium Emergency Council. A previously unknown species called the Devourers had emerged from the Galactic Rim, systematically destroying every civilization they encountered. Their technology absorbed energy-based attacks, rendering conventional weapons useless. Worse, they seemed to consume other species' knowledge and capabilities, growing stronger with each conquest. 3 major civilizations had already fallen. The proud hegemony of Kepler, masters of gravitational manipulation, had lasted only days. The crystal cities of the Andromedans, protected by quantum barriers, had been reduced to dust within hours. Even the warrior caste Drakmari, genetically engineered for combat, had been overwhelmed before they could mount effective resistance. Now the Devourers approached human space. Zefix-Ka felt a mixture of scientific curiosity and what humans might call schadenfreude. Here was an opportunity to observe how reality differed from human fiction. Surely these primitive beings would surrender immediately when faced with clearly superior force. Their primitive kinetic weapons and chemical propulsion would prove as useless as expected. The first reports from human territory defied all logical prediction. Instead of surrendering, humans had done something unprecedented. They fought with captured Devourer technology, while simultaneously using their own primitive weapons. When energy weapons proved useless, they reverted to kinetic projectiles. When those failed, they used explosives. When explosives were insufficient, they resorted to ramming attacks with their crude metal spacecraft. But the truly bewildering part was their tactics. Human fleets didn't engage in the orderly formations preferred by civilized species. Instead, they employed what military analysts could only describe as controlled chaos. Ships attacked from impossible angles, used stellar phenomena as weapons, and executed maneuvers that should have been suicidal, but somehow succeeded. One human commander had actually piloted his vessel into a star to create a gravity well that destroyed an entire Devourer fleet. Another had detonated their planet's moon to eliminate Devourer ground forces. The stories spoke of human soldiers fighting hand-to-hand when ammunition ran out, using improvised weapons, and refusing to yield even when facing certain death. Zefix Ka's optical sensors dimmed as comprehension slowly dawned. Those fictional stories weren't fantasies at all. They were historical records. Beowulf hadn't been mythology but biography. World War II hadn't been propaganda but documentation. Every impossible tale of human endurance, sacrifice, and victory against overwhelming odds had been real. Humans didn't write fiction about heroes because they fantasized about being heroic. They wrote about heroes because they had been heroes, repeatedly, throughout their entire evolutionary history. Their primitive weapons weren't limitations but preferences. Their inefficient tactics weren't mistakes but innovations born from necessity. While other species had evolved beyond physical conflict, humans had evolved through it. Every generation had faced existential challenges and survived not through superior technology, but through adaptability, creativity, and an apparently inexhaustible capacity for self-sacrifice. They had spent millennia preparing for exactly this kind of war without even realizing it. The reports continued streaming in. Human forces weren't just surviving against the Devourers, they were winning. Their unpredictable tactics confused enemy AI systems designed to counter logical strategies. Their primitive backup weapons functioned when advanced technology failed. Most remarkably, their willingness to accept casualties in pursuit of victory completely bewildered an enemy that expected rational surrender. Zefix Ka stared at his collection of human literature with newfound understanding. These weren't stories about what humans wished they could do. These were training manuals for what humans had always done. Every tale of impossible victory, every account of triumph through adversity, every description of heroes rising to meet unthinkable challenges represented practical knowledge passed down through generations. As news arrived of the Devourers' complete retreat from human space, Zefix Ka began composing a new academic paper. This one would recommend that all consortium species immediately begin studying human historical literature, not as curiosities, but as strategic documents from the only species that had spent their entire existence preparing for wars nobody else believed possible. The primitive humans, it turned out, were the most advanced warriors in the galaxy. They just disguised their military training as bedtime stories,